A Stitch in Time. Stephen compared his marriage to a tumbler of whiskey with a few ice cubes in it, on the rocks. His wife, Leslie, was a humorless, joyless, and negative mental attitude on legs. As the dismembered corpse of his wife lay in the bath, Stephen cleaned up his cutting instruments, and then he had a change of heart when he experienced difficulty in flushing Leslie's head down the toilet. What would happen if he had to call the plumber out at 3 a.m. to unblock the S-bend? Could he afford to write out a cheque to pay for the craftsman's call-out fee? As this and other questions flashed through his mind, he reflected on his late wife's positive traits. She was good at balancing the household accounts, drowning unwanted children, and replacing the exhaust manifold on the Volvo. As a trained surgeon, Stephen had a pretty shrewd idea about how to put his wife back together. The next morning, Sharif went into the kitchen to find his 3 children clamouring for their breakfast. "Where's Mummy?" demanded 6-year-old Gordon. "She's gone on holiday," his father said. Over the next 3 weeks, Stephen painstakingly stitched his wife's body parts together and took up an interest in electronics. He studied hard and spent weeks shopping around for resistors, capacitors, and a soldering iron. "Mummy's back now. Isn't that nice?" he announced to the children. Mummy was in the kitchen preparing breakfast. The remote control, linked to a program on the computer in Stephen's study, was not working too well. Mummy was trying to cook eggs in the spin dryer and was boiling the kids' trainers in vinegar. When she was out shopping, Olivia, the neighbour, said, "Hello." Leslie replied with a croak accompanied by the tiny whir of tiny gears, or the whir of tiny gears, because how could you have a tiny whir? Well, you could if it's made by tiny gears, the whir of tiny gears. A few days later, Stephen decided to take his wife out of circulation in order to make some adjustments. "Why does Mummy wear a scarf around her neck all the time?" asked Gordon. His elder son inquired why she spread mayonnaise on his bedsheets. "She never talks," Timmy, the middle son, remarked. "She just, makes a kind of burping noise. Is she all right, Daddy?" "Mummy smells funny. Why's that, Daddy?" Gordon asked. Sharif banged on the table and shouted at them to stop asking stupid questions. Unable and unwilling to finish their raw lamb chops and honey, and left the table. There was a light tap at the door. Stephen opened to find Olivia looking nosy as usual. "Good morning, Mr. Sharif." "Mr. Stephen, I'm sorry. I get the names wrong at my time of life. I'll say that again. Good morning, Mr. Stephen. I was just asking about your poor missus. Is she all right?" "Well, thank you for asking. I was saying to her the other day, to Mrs. D, Mrs. D in flat number 14, I says, 'Here, Mrs. Leslie, don't I smell funny, don't she?' And Mrs. D turns round and says, 'Well, I don't know.'" "Look, it's quite simple, really," Stephen cut in. "You see, my wife's got a bit of a skin problem." "Oh, I thought so," I did. "I sees her down the shops the other day, and I see someone shaking her by the hand, and her arm came off. Now, what you got to say about that, then, eh?" "Yes, quite, Mrs. Olivia. I'd love to stand here and chat all day, but can I see her then?" Not really. No, she's having a lie down, and I'm very busy." Stephen slammed the door in her face. He realised he should have to use cross-stitch, not blanket stitch, for the arms. He was in no mood to go to work that morning, and instead he went to the video shop, took out a film, hurried home and slipped the cassette into the machine. He'd settled down after he had fast-forwarded the trailers and came to the title, The Stepford Wives. He was desperate for ideas. His viewing pleasure was interrupted by two uniformed gentlemen who bust their way into his apartment. A video shop owner is helping police with their inquiries.